What's up, smarty people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, interesting facts. Well, some facts that I find interesting. You be the judge. Today on the program, the most popular baby names in each decade. If you've ever wondered how popular your name is, it's easy to find out. In 1998, the Social Security Administration began ranking the top 1,000 most common first names submitted on Social Security card applications for each year dating back to 1880. The administration then whittled down the list to the 200 most popular names of each decade, tallying up how many people share the same identifier. That list has become a tool for parents to be looking for the perfect name and a warning for those trying to avoid name trends. Here are the most popular boy and girl names from the past century. Number 1, the 1920s. Top boy names: Robert, John, James, William, Charles. Top girl names: Mary, Dorothy, Helen, Betty, Margaret. Boy names were relatively traditional and Eurocentric 100 years ago. William and Charles gave off strong, regal impressions, which is no surprise considering their origins. Both have Germanic roots and were used abundantly among British, French, and Spanish monarchs, while girl names were similar to the prior decade. Newcomer Betty was less formal than its original form of Elizabeth during a decade where women sought financial and social independence, but still not as zany as flapper-inspired names such as Fern and Lola. The 1930s. Top boy names: Robert, James, John, William, Richard. Top girl names: Mary, Betty, Barbara, Shirley, Patricia. Seemingly out of nowhere, the name Patricia catapulted to the country's top 5 spot for girl names, when just 10 years prior it ranked on 104. But why? It's possible if an influx of Irish immigrants in the early 20th century helped popularize the name as a feminine form of Patrick, Ireland's patron saint. Patricia seems traditionally Irish, though a survey of Irish Americans suggests it's more commonly used in the U.S. than the Emerald Isle itself. It's likely a name that bridged the gap between heritage and new homeland, helping young Irish Americans hold on to their family history while blending into American culture. With an easy-to-pronounce name, Patricia remained a top 5 name throughout the 1950s, spawning shortened names such as Trish, Patty, and Trisha as its popularity waned. The 1940s. Top boy names: James, Robert, John, William, Richard. Top girl names: Mary, Linda, Barbara, Patricia, Carol. Traditional names like Richard and James continued to reign supreme for boys born in the 1940s. With an ongoing war, it's likely parents reused family names to honor loved ones stationed overseas. New names for girls, however, emerged, with Carol becoming a trendy alternative to the longer Caroline. Often given to wintertime babies, Carol was considered an uplifting holiday name that honored the season's musical hymns. It peaked during the 1940s and fell from the top 10 list by 1951. Equally prominent, Barbara, which became common in the 1800s, also fell out of style by the early 1950s, but it ranks overall as the 6th most popular name for a girl over the last century, with 1.3 million women sharing the name. The 1950s. Top boy names: James, Michael, Robert, John, David. Top girl names: Mary, Linda, Patricia, Susan, Deborah. The 1950s marked a shift in Mary's role as the top girl name of all time, ending a run that had dominated the name leaderboard since the 1880s, the Social Security Administration's oldest data. It's no surprise considering the name means beloved and is an ode to the Virgin Mary. History has no shortage of famed Marys, ranging from queens and actresses to fictional characters like Mary Poppins. While less common now, holding the spot at 124 in 2020, similar names have carried on, such as Maria and Mariah. From 1921 to 2020, more than 3.1 million babies in the U.S. shared the simple four-letter name. The swingin' 1960s, baby. Top boy names: Michael, David, John, James, Robert. Top girl names: Lisa, Mary, Susan, Karen, Kimberly. Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting may have spurred a name trend during the 1960s. The Mona Lisa made its first trip to the U.S. in 1963, displayed at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and created a social excitement that led 2 million spectators to view the portrait. While the name Lisa had reached the #1 spot a year before the painting's tour, it held firm for 7 more years until being dethroned in 1970. The 60s also seeded some traditional boy names for more modern styles, with Michael starting its run as the top boy name for decades to come. The 1970s. Top boy names: Michael, Christopher, Jason, David, James. Top girl names: Jennifer, Amy, Melissa, Michelle, Kimberly. The 1970s brought about a major shift in common boy names, with Richard and William becoming old-fashioned. Parents opted for the ever-popular Michael and David, but one name ascended in a way few other names have: Jason. The name shot up the charts from spot 87 in the 1960s to third place in the 1970s. While sounding modern, Jason actually has Greek origins in mythology. Heroic Jason embarks on an epic quest to restore his family to his homeland's throne. The name fad quickly dissipated, dropping down to the 11th most popular spot in the 1980s and further in the 90s. But it has echoes in 2010's Jackson and Jackson, Jaxon and Jaxson. How about that? And now on to the greatest decade ever, the 1980s. Top boy names: Michael, Christopher, Matthew, Joshua, David. Top girl names: Jessica, Jennifer, Amanda, Ashley, and Sarah. Christopher wasn't a new name in the 1980s. It has Latin and Greek origins, becoming common among Christian followers during the Middle Ages in honor of a 3rd century saint who protected travelers. It's unclear why Christopher reached such heights in the 1980s, though it could have been influenced by the number of Christophers on stage and screen. Actors like Christopher Reeve, Christopher Walken, and Christopher Lloyd got their big breaks in the late 1970s. For girls, names like Jessica and Sarah maintained peak popularity until the early 2000s. Around the same time, parents began seeking out more unique names. Welcome to the 1990s. Top boy names: Michael, Christopher, Matthew, Joshua, Jacob. Top girl names: Jessica, Ashley, Emily, Sarah, Samantha. The name Michael was the highest ranking boy name for 5 short years, 1954 to 1959, only to come roaring back in 1961 and then holding the top spot through the 1990s. Its Hebrew origins refer to the sword-wielding archangel Michael, at one time making it a common name among soldiers and military families. In its last decade of acclaim, the name was boosted by a number of celebrity singers, Michael Jackson and Michael Bolton, basketball great Michael Jordan, and actors Michael Keaton and Michael J. Fox. In 2020, Michael remained the 12th most popular name and was the moniker given to 4.3 million boys since 1921. Now we're going to the future, all the way to the 2000s. In the year 2000. Top boy names: Jacob, Michael, Joshua, Matthew, Daniel. Top girl names: Emily, Madison, Emma, Olivia, Hannah. New millennium, new names, right? Not so much. The top names of 2000s, while seemingly fresh compared to years of Jennifers, Lisas, and Williams, mostly have old roots. Popular boy names have biblical ties, along with Hannah and Olivia, which refer to symbolic olive tree. Madison, traditionally a boy name, was commonplace throughout the 1800s, just 100 years prior. Emma was the 13th most popular name in 1900, ranking low on baby name charts until the early 2000s. And finally on this list, the 2010s. Top boy names: Noah, Liam, Jacob, William, Mason. Top girl names: Emma, Olivia, Sophia, Isabella, Ava. Just like decades before, naming trends don't often disappear easily, and it's evident with names like Emma, Olivia, and Sophia hanging on for a second decade. Compared to popular names 100 years before, modern names feel like a departure from Eurocentric names. And that's because naming websites and social media provide access to more diverse names than ever before. Where some parents look to trend-free, steadfast names, such as William, others consider unique monikers that help their kids stand out in a world of Isabellas. Consider Athena, ranked at 173. While new baby name trends are emerging, specifically nature-based names like August and Sage, and gender-neutral names like Charlie and Blake, there's no clear science as to why some names become standouts while others languish for decades. Some linguists and naming experts theorize that times of social change and upheaval spawn new creative names. If that's the case, 2020's top picks might be the most unique we've seen in a while. This has been What Makes You Smarter. Did you learn anything? Are you named one of the top names, or do you have a more unique name? Well, blame your mom and dad. Usually parents are the ones that give you those names. Or thank your mom and dad. Hey, give your mom and dad a call if they're still around, if you're lucky to still have them in the vicinity. Yeah, call them on the telephone or get them on social media. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Smarter. Hey, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.